Alright, Sonny's vlog, October 23rd, 2018. Just some interesting stuff. It's amazing some of the stuff that you see when you drive on the highway. I saw a magnet of some sort on the back of someone's car. And it was a blue background with a kind of a orange gold colored universal symbol of like a male, like you'd see on a restroom sign. It says, "Be a nice human." What kind of shit is that? And I realize that when you start thinking about how much the left pushes for equality and not having any transgressions, I mean, all this other shit, it's reverse communism. It's totalitarianism with a smile, as opposed to the old hammer and sickle. Hammer and the sickle being gold and the background being red. Red is a very angry and a powerful color, where the navy blue is the choice of more calmer type of things. For example, what I call the new hammer and sickle is the Equal Human Rights logo, which was started to promote the gay agenda that everybody, LBGQ2, MA35, blah, 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 whatever fucking additional letter or number they want to add onto it, supersedes everything else. In other words, altruism has become the new communism. So in other words, again, it's whack-a-mole, that you should never be able to step up and step out above anyone else. Another thing that I've noticed in the workplace, many of these places, especially some of these corporations that have a lot of facilities, or the corporate headquarters is based in California or New York, this political correctness has really become an absolute gospel. I mean, it's not just religion, it is a gospel. So they keep pushing for diversity and this, that, and the other. Remind you that diversity means no white people. I don't care what you call it. Me personally, being a Jeffersonian Republican, I don't give a flying fuck what your ethnicity is. I don't give a fuck what your sex is. I don't give a fuck what your personal preferences are. If you like it up the fucking sphincter, that's your goddamn business, but don't make a movement out of it. That being said, what I look at it as, if you can do the job better than the next guy, and I mean guy as a person, more power to you. I shouldn't have to fucking hire you just because you're an Asian. I shouldn't have to hire you because you're black, Hispanic, because you're Indian, or because you're a fag, or you're a fucking carpet muncher. I don't give a flying fuck what your preferences are. Personally, if I can't wear a political shirt in the goddamn fucking workplace, or something of a rock band might be depicted that might offend you, even if it's now a classic rock or metal band. For example, someone might be offended because I have an Iron Maiden t-shirt on. They may think that Eddie is offensive. Well, that's your fucking problem. Or even Vic Rattlehead from Megadeth. I mean, it's not going to be too long before hard rock and metal bands are going to be considered politically incorrect. I'm telling you, I've said it on there many times. But this retroactive fucking shit that they're going to start pushing, anything that you do, I mean, Kavanaugh is just the beginning. Or something that he supposedly did when he was 17 years old, regardless if it's true or not, can be held against you. So how long is it before some of these left-wing fucking rockers aren't considered left enough and they start getting stuck on a hook? For example, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd has been absolutely fucking cleaved politically because he's come out talking about the Jew world order, speaking out against Israel and supporting the Palestinian flotilla as a humanitarian issue. He was absolutely chastised. Basically, he was ridiculed. His music was thrown out under the bus, and basically said that's why he was no longer in Pink Floyd, because apparently he was a non-contributing member, and that's why the other band members kicked him out. That's not the case at all. And not only that, but, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon as well as The Wall is still considered quintessential rock albums, and also The Wall is considered one of the greatest concept albums of all time. And it's all basically his brainchild. So now he's getting thrown on a bus because he has a political opinion that goes against popular opinion that you can't say anything, much less talk shit about Jews and Israel or anything else. So the ADL goes and attacks this guy. So this is some of the shit that goes on there. Pink Floyd is very far left, dude. Very far left. And same with Paul McCartney. How long is it before he gets retroactively charged for co-writing a song with another known agitator of the state, John Lennon, who some people think got his just dues, to be quite honest, writing a song called Revolution, which eventually helped bring down the USSR. Because there's all sorts of folklore about how Beatles music was smuggled in behind the Iron Curtain in all sorts of strange and innovative formats so Russians could hear the Beatles music. Even if they didn't understand the lyrics, they could at least appreciate the music and gave them hope on the other side of the Iron Curtain. Because under a totalitarian regime like that, all forms of musical expression, unless authorized by the state, were completely suppressed, especially from the West. Same with East Germany. I mean, you know, I know someone who actually managed to escape from there. It talks about the totalitarianism of the East German state and the Stasi. And years later, after the collapse, he was able to go back and check the Stasi files on him and his wife. And because his wife was an active practicing Catholic her entire life, the file on her was over 4 inches thick. The file on him is only a little over an inch and a half thick. And that's probably after he converted to Christianity while behind the Iron Curtain. So those are some situations there I think they need to be addressed. So we know that this whole generation of rock musicians is on their last legs. I mean, I would highly recommend, if you have children, go see a lot of these legends now. Even though the ticket prices on some of them may be completely outrageous, like Fleetwood Mac, for example. I think I heard maybe Peter Gabriel may be touring again. I don't know. I know he's having some health issues. Phil Collins, ticket prices are high, but it's Phil Collins. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? Kiss is getting ready to do their last tour called End of the Road. Motley Crue have called it quits. One of my local bands, Animal Grace, after 30 years, reunited with the original lineup from the early days, played their last show this past weekend, and they're done as an entity. All sorts of interesting things. So, I mean, a lot of the great rock acts of the baby boomer period and slightly afterwards are now getting ready to hang it up due to age, health, or death. So, all those great musicians, all that great music and entertainment for decades. I mean, you can tell when you still go to some of these older acts, you still got young people showing up. I mean, I was at an Earth, Wind & Fire concert, dude. The average age is probably 55. There was some youthful people there, and I say youthful, I didn't see a lot of kids, but, you know, 20s. And Earth, Wind & Fire is still great group. Even though 3 core members are still surviving, it isn't quite the same without Maurice, of course. But it's Earth, Wind & Fire. I mean, one of the greatest crossover groups of all time. I mean, personally, my favorite album is All in All. I mean, what a great album. Phenomenal. But, and there's a lot of things Earth, Wind & Fire did to the contributing to bringing all sorts of exotic instruments to the forefront, such as the kalimba, which is a finger piano from Africa. So, I mean, those are some things that really, really matter. I mean, Beatles did a lot of crossover stuff in the middle period, introducing the world to Indian music and all sorts of other stuff into the West. So, which is great. But I think, like Lenny Kravitz announced, as well as I think Marilyn Manson, that rock and roll is truly dead. I mean, once a lot of the great rock acts hang it up, die, or just can't do it anymore, that's it. Because the newer crop of bands, they just don't have it. I mean, the average lifespan of most of these newer bands, typically a band lasts 5 years, and that's if they release an album every 2 years. If you put out an album every year, like some groups did, you'll get 5 years, maybe 6, 7, 8 live album greatest hits done. It's usually how they fill out contracts. But the bottom line is, most of these new bands don't last more than maybe 5 years. You might have some bands like Godsmack who consistently put out records. Motorhead put out an album almost every year, at the max, every 2 years. Megadeth, very rarely do they go more than 2 years on an album. I think the album touring cycle is basically a year and a half. Then they work on another album. Boom, it's out. So Megadeth, in my opinion, has far exceeded Metallica in expectations because they consistently churn out albums. Even though a lot of Megadeth stuff generally sounds the same, Metallica albums do change from album to album for the most part. And lately, not for the better. I mean, it took a little while to get used to the load and reload albums, but I think they've held up over 20 years. They're fairly solid. And the S&M album, basically the Newsted era. And after that, Metallica sucked. I mean, they've really gone downhill. I think, and I know James and Lars aren't getting along too well. James is getting tired of Lars' bullshit. So, and I'm really surprised James has not done a solo album. Really, I'm really surprised he's not done a solo record. Just for artistic creativity. Or even Kirk doing an album, maybe get with different singers or doing an instrumental album. I just don't know why he hasn't done anything just to flex his muscles as a musician. So that's some interesting stuff, but that's just my opinion. But I think Metallica are definitely at the end of the road. After seeing them in '93, I would never pay to see them again. Probably one of the biggest disappointments I've ever seen is Metallica. 2 months later, a month or so later, I saw Def Leppard in the round on the Adrenalize tour. Let me tell you what, I thought they kicked Metallica's ass big time. And I've seen Def Leppard 6 times. And I don't think they could put on a bad show if they tried. with Def Leppard, I don't think it's possible for them to do a bad show. I just don't see it happening. So, to me, that says a lot. But anyways, those are some things that I'm seeing as a serious problem in the near future. So, I definitely think that a lot of these acts are going to have to really start, a lot of people need to take these kids to see these bands now because there aren't that many of them left. I mean, I've seen a couple of great legends recently doing their farewell tours. I've seen Kenny Rogers. Again, I've seen Earth, Wind & Fire. I saw Ringo again a second time, but I'll say this. I definitely will not pay to see another Ringo Starr show. Nothing against the show, nothing against the great all-star musicians he has, but I went to his merchandise booth, and he has a T-shirt which is going to a charity with the statue of the gun barrel tied in a knot in front of the UN. That shows me he's a complete globalist and a gun grabber. So it's bad enough he's the, peace guy of the Beatles, but he's gone so far off the reservation, I think he's starting to get senile. So basically, as far as I'm concerned, I probably will never go see Ringo Starr again. That really pissed me off. And some other people I talked to that also saw that at the show said that they were a little perturbed by that as well. I mean, if you want to feel that way, fine, but I'm not going to buy a shirt and know where that money's fucking going. I wouldn't mind doing research on that, find, hey, where's that shirt going, what charity, and then start filing the money where it goes. I think you'd be really surprised where it ends up. So those are some issues there I think need to be seriously addressed. But I will say this, though. The Jews are doing a really good job helping to bring down Christianity on a number of levels. Christianity itself, the church is actually bringing it down. This priest that they have in charge, this goddamn fucking asshole, he's devil incarnate. He's a fucking Jesuit. I mean, goddamn, dude, he's the enemy of the church. It's Satan running the church, man. It is. I mean, you got a socialist piece of shit who says basically Christians don't give up their guns or say anything to defend themselves. Is basically not human. I mean, seriously, what kind of fucking shit is this guy? He wants to talk trash about building bridges, not having walls. Okay, fine. You let refugees inside your fucking Vatican walls and see how well that goes. Islam has stated specifically that they will not stop until the Islamic flag is flying over the Vatican, which means they'll actually completely destroy it, destroy the Sistine Chapel, all of it. They make no bones about it. So why is it okay for Islam to tell you their mission statement is to destroy Christendom, Europa, and all the West, and turn it into an Islamic state? And nobody says anything to the contrary. But you get a couple of right-wing groups who state their mission statements Oh, they're fascist, or they're white supremacists, or they're this, or they're that. They promote nationalism. Oh my God. So media flips the fuck out, and then they go and start doing everything they can to try to destroy these entities and try to destroy whatever opportunity they have to get these ideas out there, and at least see if they become mainstream. So we saw after Charlottesville, they've actually done racketeering and destroying many opportunities to raise money, which there needs to be some class action lawsuits against these entities, not only against the financial institutions that cave in the pressure, but also whoever entities are pushing these agendas, because of the fact it is organized racketeering. Matter of fact, I think many of those left-wing groups, including the Soros Foundations and all these other fucking groups he pushes, should be charged under RICO statutes, because that's exactly what it is. They're engaging in criminal activities. Especially when many of these right-wing groups, even churches, or 501(c) legitimate organizations registered through the government, are being told they cannot raise funds for their legitimate government-recognized transactions. Even the NRA is having a record number of donations, and it can't process like a third to half of it because all the transactions for transaction money are completely stifled. This is very disturbing. And even if you come up with new ways or come up with new entities to try to process money, those get shut down too. Or what happens is, like Soros does, he'll wait till it builds up to a certain point, and like typical Jews, they wait till their boom and bust cycles of the Fed, and then they go in and basically, when you're down on the ropes financially, they purchase your entity, becomes a subsidiary somewhere else, and then they run it, and then boom. Next thing you know, PayPal drops Alex Jones. So this is a prime example of racketeering. And I know Alex has sued PayPal. They definitely need to sue Twitter and any of the other social networks for racketeering, suppression of freedom of speech, which is interesting because many times as they've sued record companies and artists over the content of their albums, and it's been held up in court most of the time. I mean, Two Live Crew, so what if the shit's offensive? No one is making you go out and buy the fucking album. I mean, personally, As Nasty as They Want to Be was okay, but most of the beats in it sucked. It's all lyrics. And then they couldn't follow up with anything good afterwards. I mean, it blew the wad on As Nasty as They Want to Be, and they can never follow it up with a good record. Again, when rap was first coming out, gangster rap with NWA and Public Enemy and all that shit, if they did have self-imposed parental advisory sticker or printed into the artwork, the PMRC actually pushed forward a legitimate sticker, the black and white, says parental advisory explicit lyrics, but they're only slapping on heavy metal albums. I'm like, oh, whoa, what about this gangster rap shit, man? Why aren't they getting fucking shit? That's because they're afraid of them. Eventually, they started putting the stickers on the albums. But what you don't realize, it's a human condition. When you tell somebody they can't have something, it makes people want it. It goes gold. So they'll never learn from that stupid bullshit. But these are the type of things. But when they start suppressing stuff and start putting shit in there and all this other stuff, I mean, me personally, when I see these artists promoting some of this far left-wing political agenda, I will make a decision whether I'm going to buy a shit or not after that. Like Bruce Springsteen, I will never buy another album from Springsteen. I will burn them. Yes, I'll go and I won't even get a used copy. I'll go to the library and burn the fucking shit if I even want to listen to his trash, because I'm not a big fan of his artistry, because I don't appreciate his far left-wing shit. That being said, though, I'm not going to stifle his ability to record it and put out his point of view. It's just like anything else. Free market decide if it sells or not. So if I like his shit, I buy his albums. Someone like Ted Nugent, who really doesn't have a lot of political content in his music, which is good. He separates his music from his political point of view for the most part. I would definitely support him because of the fact that I appreciate his stuff. I sympathize with his point of view. I agree with most of his talking points, and I will go to his concerts and support him. For 70 years old, the guy can still rock the fuck out. Let me tell you what, that's badass. You know, I saw him this past summer. You know, he still can rock out. So I would support him. I buy his albums and I go to his concert. And again, I'm not a big Ted Nugent fan. I mean, I can appreciate his work, but it's not like, oh, good, Ted's got a new album, got to buy it. You know? So those are some things that I see that are some serious problems, and they need to be addressed. And so until people start waking the fuck up and start realizing that once you start allowing suppression of freedom of speech in any format, in any medium, then when it eventually starts fucking getting legs and running with it, it's eventually going to get you. It's going to suppress you. It's going to suppress the voices you like to hear, even if they're left wing. Because if they're not left enough, which is what we see with this Antifa shit, even some of these college professors that advocate all this social change and are social justice warriors, if they're not far enough left, in other words, not a complete communist, regardless of their skin color, then they're completely dismissed. Or someone go, well, we advocate this, but we don't want to go that far. In other words, you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 80%, but if you're not a full 100% communist, or you're not a white social justice warrior bowing down, licking the boots of minorities, then you're considered unacceptable. Even when it's Jews, they're seen as white because most of them are light complected. They completely get chastised. Like the one guy there at, I think, Evergreen. He realized he was a victim of his own art form. And I think that's funnier than shit. He realized, oh, damn, dude, what the fuck? They basically outed him because even though he's a Jew, he wasn't far enough left. They thought he was a white guy, even though it's pretty obvious a guy named Weinstein or Weissman. It's pretty obvious he's a fucking Jew. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting that they're starting to become entrapped and ensnared in their own bullshit. And then they sit there and scratch their heads instead of scratching their ass like they like to do. So those are things that need to be addressed. Another thing is the Dead Sea Scroll fragments have been found out to be, it looks like they're frauds. Again, sold to many evangelical groups or even supporters like the CEO of Hobby Lobby spent millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars buying these damn things so they could be available in the museums and to find out they're fucking frauds. Now, is there any way to get his money back? Probably not. But that being said, that's a serious issue because of the fact that, that's the biggest thing. That kind of underscores just how stupid and easily led these evangelicals are. Something that's even remotely Dead Sea Scrolls or Old Testament. Ugh. First of all, if you were a Christian, why would you give two shits about the Old Testament? That's completely Jew. The New Testament's all about Jesus, right? That's who you're supposed to be following. You know Jesus is a Jew. You're assuming he's the son of God, but the Jews don't recognize it because they think he's just another prophet. Okay? But they're not denying his Jewishness because, in fact, his mother is a Jew. But then they completely deny the guy. And, of course, the Muslims hate him because, in fact, he is a Jew. They recognize him for what he is. So, you can't win for losing. So, I don't get it. But, that's some of the things that should be addressed. Because I think the more and more that we start to see some of this stuff, we realize that we're having some serious issues trying to understand that this forced suppression is what they do best. And if they can't force suppress enough, then they'll find something else to compile on top of it and always keep you on the defense. That's what they don't want to do. They want to keep you on the defense, so you're always having to defend your stance. So when someone goes up and says, oh, you're a racist, you should go, yeah, I am. You're a nationalist. That's right, I am. Trump was being chastised by the media. Oh, he said he's a nationalist. Well, he is a nationalist. He's pro-Americana, sort of make America great again as a nationalism battle cry. Me first, I would be a nationalist. But I'm a nationalist in the form of I am in Ohio first. I'm like Robert E. Lee. My state is my country. So I would always be Ohio first in any decision that I would make. How does it benefit Ohio? Is it good for Ohioans? It's just like when Malcolm X was asked, would you support socialism? Is it good for black people? If so, then I'm for it. So I would say, is it good for Ohioans? If so, I'm for it. Whatever the topic may be. So does it benefit Ohioans? Did they get rewards out of it? Does it increase the economy? Does it do this? Does it do that? These are some things that obviously I would ask as an advocate of my state. And I don't want to totally shit on the other 49 states, but I'm not going to dismiss my state or lower the standards of the possibilities of my state for yours. If anything, I can say, how would it benefit to invest in my state with yours? In other words, if you have a product and it's finished here, or majority of the work is done here and it gets sent back to you to be finished, those are things that would benefit my state as well as yours. But bottom line is, it would definitely benefit mine most of all because I can actually have all my packing list envelopes, I would say, proudly made in Ohio. Or proudly made and shipped from Ohio. Something of that matter. These are things that matter. And so that's why any governor that is for the state of Ohio, especially Republican, should have an Ohio first policy, because as chief executive of the great sovereign state of Ohio, that should be first on the priority list. Whatever I do, how is it going to benefit Ohio and Ohioans? How is it going to benefit us? How can I get more money from the federal government and have us give less back to it? How can we retain as much money? Because in some forms, I just see as money laundering when you fucking send money to the federal government and ask for it back. How is that different than money laundering? How's that different than, it's like giving money to the mob? Same fucking thing. So, it's bullshit. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'd say, you know what, all these interstate highways, which is essentially funded by U.S. funding, fine. But I would take all my state dollars and say, we'll take care of our state routes. You take care of the interstate ones. It's not our fucking problem. Your Eisenhower interstate system should be paid for by the federal government. It's not our responsibility. And that includes any infrastructure that it covers. In other words, if it covers the Brent Spence Bridge, that should be covered by federal tax dollars, not Kentucky, not Ohio. If they do want to have something like that, fine. But it's an interstate route that covers those bridges. We'll take care of the bridges that cover the state routes that go between the two states, or the U.S. routes as opposed to interstate routes. Those are all factors that come into play. So until someone actually starts raising some questions about that and start reasserting our sovereignty as a state, then I don't think anyone is eligible to run for a fucking governor's stand without being seen as a patsy or as a puppet for special interests. That's how I look at it. If you're not pro-gun, pro-speech, and pro-state, you have no business running for governor in any way, state, or form. And you should never, ever consider running for higher office while you are a sitting governor in the great sovereign state of Ohio. You should not run for Senate. You should not run for fucking president. Nothing. I chastised Kasich and I even called his fucking office. How dare you fucking run for president while you're a sitting governor? Wait till you finish your second term. Let it sit for a cycle or so. Then, if you want to throw your hat in the ring, then you can use your 2 years as governor as your template of why you should be president. Even though he's a low-life piece of shit. We saw how he fucking strong-armed people here within the state government and the GOP. He's totally unacceptable to ever run for fucking president. He's a complete piece of shit. He's a schmoes. And that guy should be really fucking, he'd better take his money and fucking just retire and disappear. Because he's persona non grata in the state of Ohio as far as we're concerned. So anyway, well, that's my particular thoughts. So there's some things to be looked at. Oh, secondly, I'm really going to start pushing and maybe hopefully get my local representative to start pushing a bill to abolish the vanity tax on our license plates. If you want to pay the initial $50 to create the plate, fine. But continuing to charge us $50 every time we have to renew the plate after the plate's already been printed is the definition of legalized extortion. You give me the fucking ability to express my freedom of speech, but then you tax me on it every time I do it. That's extortion. That is the very definition of extortion. And so I think we need to probably put together a class action lawsuit that anyone who has a vanity plate in the state of Ohio should sue the state of Ohio for that. I think that's the only way it's really going to get where something going. If that's what it takes, then I'm going to fucking do what I can to find every goddamn owner that has that and send them shit at my expense and say, hey, we're going to file a class action lawsuit against the state of Ohio for that reason and see what happens. We'll use direct democracy to get shit work. That's the only way it's going to work if the legislative approach does not catch any steam. So anyway, and they're also talking about maybe dropping the front plate. If you drop the front plate, you should drop the price. If I'm not paying for 2 fucking plates, why am I paying full price? Especially with a vanity tax. That's bullshit. Call it what it is, a vanity tax. All right, resolutionrdo.com, sonnythomas.com. You can find us on vk.com/sonnythomasshow, vk.com/resolutionrdo, on Gab at Real Sonny Thomas, Sonny Thomas Show, and at Resolution RDO. Check out our programs. They always have a really good show. Actually, 7 nights a week. Staunch my heart and hail victory.